Jeez, you already know what it is. Myself, Omega Axel, back once again putting in the ancestors' work. What's good? Wagwan. What's going down for the live and locked in fam? First thing I have to say is peace and more powers to everybody who is supporting the launch of the new book. Listen, I am overwhelmed. I was not expecting such an amazing response. Had orders from North Dakota and Alabama and Mississippi, New York, all of the way across to New Zealand. So listen, I thank you. Peace and powers to all of the patrons locked in. I really appreciate your support. As I always say emphatically, it's through your support that allows me to free up my time to be able to do these types of things, so thank you very much. But today's video is going to be a quick summary, quick overview, to enable people to understand fully as to why I believe it was important to bring back the man J.A. Rogers to the forefront of people's minds. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with a mission objective, because ultimately, not only is this book a tribute to J.A. Rogers, aka Joel Augustus Rogers, this is also a tribute to each and every single black African Caribbean person, not only just on the continent or in the Caribbean islands, but of across the diaspora as well. So I don't just want to spit facts at you today, okay? I want to be able to explain to you some of the reasons as to why I think that J.A. Rogers should be brought back to the forefront of the community's mind. But I also want to be able to explain to everybody about the intentional and unintentional misinformation which is taught to our children through the educational system about black African Caribbean people, okay? It leaves our kids coming up through the educational system in a state of confusion, and it leaves them at a loss trying to positively place themselves in this continually evolving, globalized, ever connected, interconnected economy. Okay, so this I believe is down to having a lack of positive role models, okay, and positive mentors, okay, or positive images for them to kind of attach to that aren't in the sports, the media, or the music industry. As if to say that's all that black African Caribbean people can succeed at, is in sports, music, and entertainment, okay? So it's a fact that a positive mentality goes on to create a positive reality, okay? So I also hope to be able to make the case very, very clear in this video why I would hope that this book will go on to be considered and to be classed as a essential on every black African Caribbean person's shelf at home. Because not only does it come with obviously the 100 facts and all of the information to back up what we're saying, it also comes with things like quizzes, lesson plans, kinetic activity ideas, things to help you critically engage in thought and to expand your own level of knowledge. It's got reading lists in there, okay? So very, very much recommending you to go and buy the thing. Obviously I'm biased, I'm gonna tell you to go and get the thing. Anyway, on top of that, we're also going to be covering who is J.A. Rogers, why I decided to keep the title of the book the same, Negro, 100 amazing facts about the Negro, and we're also going to cover some of the selected facts that that I put into the new book. So first and foremost, Joel Augustus Rogers was born September the 6th in 1880 in Sheffield, Westmoreland in Jamaica, and he was raised alongside 10 siblings, mainly by their father Samuel John Rogers, a Methodist minister and a school teacher, and all throughout his younger childhood he was recommended and consistently reminded about the importance of gaining a good education. After school, Joel actually went on to enlist in the British Army. As most people know, Jamaica was, under the colonial regime of the British, okay, until independence. He was posted at Fort Royal Garrison, okay, which is an artillery division, and that was in Port Royal. His career only lasted a few short years after failing a medical test which would have seen him posted overseas. Like his siblings, Joel decided to emigrate to the United States in 1906, and he found himself briefly in Chicago, Illinois, before actually settling down pretty much permanently in New York City. Joel's interest in the military remained as a constant throughout his entire life. He wrote he wrote a series of articles and pamphlets which highlighted the African American experience during the American Civil War between 1861 and 1865, and he also covered the African American experience out of Germany during World War II. So when Joel first arrived in Chicago, he enrolled in the Chicago Institute of Arts in 1909, and he studied interior design, and he supported himself through a job which was a Pullman porter, which was basically like working as a servant on a train. You know, they would go door to door, make sure everybody was, you know, okay, right there. And this allowed him, you know, to pay for this part of education. But it was this job that allowed his education and his understanding and his knowledge to expand. Okay, this is what helped kind of pique his interest in both journalism and history, because he was now able to research how the African American was treated in America. Okay, so he got to understand how segregation and racism and the Jim Crow laws affected, you know, different groups of black people all across America. It was in 1917 that his first work was officially published, although it was done privately by and printed by M.A. Donahue and Co. From Superman to Man is considered to be his seminal work, because a lot of the ideas which were seeded in that book go on to be expanded and spoken about in much more detail in later works. Joel managed to publish a total of 39 works in his career, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, most people today with assistants don't even manage to publish that amount of work. So what he's done there is absolutely fantastic. Oh. Joel managed to publish a total of 39 works, which in their totality, alongside his physical presence, played a tremendously positive role in educating, empowering, and uplifting the diaspora. He articulately and unapologetically challenged the institutional, systematic, academic, and social racism in such a meticulously prepared, concise, and understandable way that he cemented himself into the blueprint that the civil rights struggle later went on to be built on. Okay. Now, Joel's work, which still receives regular citation, which inspired a generation of self-supporting scholars like Dr. Ben, John Henrik Clark, Sheikh Anta Diop, Chancellor Williams, Dr. Amos Williams, John G. Jackson, Van Sertima, and etc. Okay, they all continue to kind of, you know, they picked up the reins from where he left off and successfully uncovered or continued to uncover the African legacy. Now, of the 39 works that he went on to publish, okay, a full list which you can find in the book itself, some of them are considered to be classics, okay. World's Greatest Men and Women of African Descent, which he published in 1935, Real Facts About Ethiopia in 1936, Sex and Race Volumes 1 to 3, and Nature Knows No Colour Lines, Research into the Negro Ancestry in the White Race. All of those were like fire titles, okay. But before all of those come, there was 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof, a shortcut to world history of the Negro. And that book went on to later be revised in 1962 and republished with some updates and some better information in there. And that book literally was published to a group of people who did not have access to information like we do today. But let's cover this bit first. Ultimately, when I recommend people to actually go and read J.A. Rogers' original work, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, people screw their face at me and they show a particular misunderstanding about both the term and the author's use. In fact, most of us are actually intentionally or misintentionally misinformed about the historical and linguistic origins of the word, okay? Words are more important than a lot of us take into consideration, and in fact, a lot of people just take words for granted, okay? Especially black people, okay? Words and language is something which has been used against us emphatically. Why do you think they took their, our languages away from us when they took us off the boat? You know, put one African who speaks one tongue next to another African who speaks another tongue and spits them off from their own people, because words are power. Okay, spelling, you know. But anyway, I digress. In Rogers' original work, in Fact 91, he makes the point and makes his case very, very clear. And he actually wrote an additional article, which I'd go in and recommend you to go and Google. It's called "What Should We Call Ourselves" by Joel Augustus Rogers. But in Fact 91, he makes it abundantly clear, okay, that the most ancient names for so-called black people are Nehisu or Nubian, Ethiopian, and Moor from ancient Egypt, and Negro or Negrita from West Africa. All of the above are native African words. Negro is probably the oldest, as the Negritos are the oldest known branch of the human race. Negro comes from the river Niger. Niger found its way into Latin, and since the people in that region were dark-skinned, Niger, Nigra, Nigrum became to mean black. Negro, Negrita, Negrita means people of the Great River. Black and coloured, like white, are, on the other hand, European words. Ethiopian and Moor were popularly used to describe the so-called blacks until 1500. Shakespeare uses Negro only once, and he uses it synonymously with Moor. Africa comes out of the ancient Egyptian Afruka, or Ka Africa, or land of Kafrik. Okay? For the history of the word Niger and Negrita, from which the word Negro comes, see Sir William Smith's Dictionary of Greek and Roman Geography, Volume 2, pages 429, as well as pages 296 through to page 297. In the Journal of Royal Sociology, I believe that must be, Volume 2, pages 1 to 28, published in 1832 by W.M. Leake, who says, with regard to the origin of the word Niger, more than one celebrated writer has fallen into the error in supposing that Niger is a Latin word. Okay, so this has been known since 1830. Yeah, this is not new news. But of course, to many of us today who have been intentionally misinformed, you're like, raw, I thought that was a Spanish word or a Portuguese word or a Latin word. Of course, you can take a quick screenshot and you can read into the rest of the proofs that are provided by J.A. Rogers. But I believe that's hook, line and sinker. So, what you also have to remember and take into consideration with 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro is you have to remember, yeah, this was published at a period of time, okay, when there were things like Jim Crow laws, there were sundown towns. In fact, there was actually a book written around 1910 that gave black people details about how to travel around America without being lynched. Okay, there was around 3,363 black people who were actually lynched. Many of them for very trivial reasons. Yeah. But ultimately, it was a pleasure thing. It was because these black people were exhibiting a type of freedom that made white people feel uncomfortable. They threatened the white European imperial power dynamic. They were being successful, surviving by themselves, creating their own economy. But anyway, again, I digress. That's a different point. But 100 Amazing Facts sought out to showcase and present a wide variety of obscure black African facts to empower the population of people fresh out of slavery, simultaneously, as I said, dealing with segregation and Jim Crow laws. Understandably, the black African community in America, and in the UK as well, and the community of the 30s, were particularly exposed to a very open and aggressive form of racism, okay? And education was only available to the few. And the narrative which was actually provided to the African American societally about their origins and their history and their collective achievements and their value towards society and their potential and their ability, you know, to the right to self-determination was only ever in line with keeping them under the foot. Okay, so they were only ever taught to the benefit of Europeans or to their oppressors. So the fact that J.A. Rogers utilized this term, he was using it to stand in defiance, to kind of stick his finger up to this agenda which was happy to desecrate this word which carries so much you know, ancestral wealth, valuable historical, cultural, and broad advance in scientific, medical, agricultural, and universal knowledge. Okay, he was saying, we're taking this title back. You're saying that Negro means slavery, lynching, oppression, poverty, disease. I'm saying, as J.A. Rogers, it means the creation of reading, writing, maths, science, astronomy, medicine. Yeah? So that was the process of what he was doing with the book. So the book in contemporary terms clearly sets off to be like the catalyst which sparks the reader to reevaluate their assumptions about themselves, and maybe if a white person read it, maybe to reevaluate their assumptions about black African people. But it was all about destroying the negative stereotype about Negroes or black African Caribbean people. Okay, and it serves as a crash course to the black African community about black excellence, and it was given to them at a period of time, like I said, when they were massively in need of positive imagery. So to understand my reasons as to putting together this work, it has to be acknowledged and it has to be understood that despite your current limitation of experience, or maybe your current lack of, current level of knowledge, should I say, racism is not an issue which died or ended or went away with slavery, and it certainly didn't end with the Jim Crow laws when they were abolished, and it did not end with integration, okay, and it didn't end with the rise and the fall of the civil rights struggle. The modern day experience of racism for the black African Caribbean person, not only in the Western world, and across the diaspora, but also on the continent as well, is particularly marginalized in heavy attempts to promote this illusion of equal rights and opportunity. 50 to 100 years ago, okay, the societal sentiment was of course more aggressively open, okay, it was more accepting of racism, but today the tactics which are employed are a lot more subtle. Racism is very much alive, okay, and the symptoms have only, evolved and manifested to fit the current day and age. So the time on plantations and building railroads and picking cotton is completely over for most of us, may I say. But in this patriarchal society that's heavily motivated by the concept of white supremacy, this agenda manifests itself in a variety of different ways and different forms, okay, like the financial institutes that create economic monopolies and deny and block and bottleneck funding into the black community. It manifests itself in the poor, biased, outdated, non-inclusive educational systems which are designed to culturally disempower people of colour. Okay, it fuels the stereotypes of Africa, the isolated, broken, diseased, conflicted, exotic, environmental, danger Africa. Don't go there, you might get kidnapped. It pushes these things, okay? And these stereotypes and all the misinformation are part of this massive agenda that has us here in the West as descendants and seeds of the continent turning our back on the continent. And the reason they want us to turn our back on the continent is because it allows them to go in there. It allows them to buy up the land, extort the resources, extort and violate the people. So the agenda is serious. Ultimately, 83 years on, okay, after the first release of 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, much of the information has been lost on our peoples and lost on our generation, which is why I felt it was necessary to attempt to bring J.A. Rogers back to the forefront of people's minds. Our ancestors gave us, okay, they gave not just us, they gave us the entire world reading, writing, maths, advanced science, astronomy, medicine, all of these different things that I talk about on a regular basis. Okay, they provided classical Greece with the blueprint which the Western world is built on today. But all that we get taught about our past, our history, our ancestors is slavery. So like I said before, okay, a positive mentality creates a positive mentality, and if we continue to depend on the people who benefit from our, our misinformed, ignorant, confused, undivided, uneducated selves, then we can't expect the situation to get any better. So, to get in to some selected facts out of the book, okay, I'm going to start with fact number 2 about Michael Jackson. Okay, we all know that he is a MVP, an absolute legend. But the fact is, The international music sensation Michael Jackson holds the record for the highest selling album of all time with an estimated 65 million sold worldwide. And it was announced by the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA, that the late Prince of Pop had become the first recording artist to go 33 times platinum in the United States. And according to the Guinness World Book of Records, he is the most successful entertainer of all time. And he has sold over 1 billion records. Now that is absolutely serious. Absolutely serious. A recent record was confirmed about Michael Jackson as well, which will be added into the updated edition. Is that Michael Jackson is the highest earning dead artist for 5 years in a row. I don't believe that is something that will be beaten for a very, very long time. Next, fact number 18. The medieval kingdom of Benin was built in a scale similar to the Great Wall of China and is recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest earthworks in the entire world carried out prior to the mechanical era. The defensive walls that enclosed and protected the kingdom are still partly visible, and are estimated to have stretched a total of 10,000 miles. Like, that is mad. But we're told that these medieval, middle-age kingdoms in Africa were primitive. Didn't have advanced knowledge, but you're able to pull off giant engineering, can't even speak. Primitive, but you're able to pull off this fantastic feat of engineering genius. Something doesn't sit right with me about that primitive theory. Fact 26. Ernie Davis, the American football prodigy, was the first black winner of the Heisman Trophy in 1962 for his fantastic contribution to college sports and becoming a #1 NFL draft pick. Sadly, despite his relentless courage and his persistence, he lost the battle with leukemia and his professional career never manifested. Davis, during the period of the Civil Rights Movement, a time when universities and educational institutes did not typically offer financial assistance to black athletic students, David was offered as many as 50 scholarship proposals. That's powers. That's amazing. Resonate in peace, Ernie D. Fact 29. At the age of 24 in 2007, Barrington Irving Jr, CD, became the youngest person to pilot a plane around the world solo, also making him the first black person and the first Jamaican to accomplish this feat. Big up Jam Rap. Fact 38. Theoretical physicist Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson is truly a phenomenal woman of the 21st century. She became the first black woman to graduate from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is MIT, with a doctorate in physics in 1973. Jackson's breakthrough research enabled others to successfully invent portable fax, the touch-tone telephone, solar cells, fiber optic cables, and the technology behind caller ID and call waiting. Power sister. Jackson currently serves as the president of the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is the oldest technological research university in the United States, and is the highest paid president of a privately owned college. Fact 45. Mary Seacole, Jamaican-born businesswoman and healer, tops the greatest Black Britons list for her role in the Crimean War as a nurse and a spirit raiser of the wounded soldiers, despite the continual struggles that she faced because of the colour of her skin. The War Office denied Seacole's offer to assist, and so she took it upon herself at her own expense to travel to the conflict zone, where she established a hotel as her base of operation. The soldiers that she came into contact with and that she helped became to know her as Mother Seacole. Fact 52. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected the 24th president of Liberia and was the first woman to hold this position in an African country, and has done so for 12 years. At the age of 78, Ellen shall be retiring from office in October 2017. after the Liberian election. Johnson Sirleaf was a huge proponent of women's rights and won the Nobel Peace Prize alongside fellow Liberian Lamea Gobwe, and don't want to disrespect the sister and pronounce that incorrectly, sister from Yemen in 2011 for their work successfully in the non-violent struggle for the safety of women and women's rights to fully participate in peace building work. Fact 59. Queen Nanny. Queen Nanny is regarded as a national hero throughout the Caribbean and particularly in Jamaica for her role as a spiritual military leader of the Maroons. Maroon means runaway and refers to the Africans that fled the plantations to form communities that opposed slavery and the British colonial regime. Nanny was of the Ashanti people and she was enslaved during the 18th century before escaping with other enslaved Africans to the mountainous areas east of the island on Portmore and in St. Thomas. Nanny was documented to be at the age of around 60 at the peak of her tenure in control of the Windward Maroons, and her cunning guerrilla military tactics were said to surprise and overwhelm the British soldiers who attempted to apprehend them. Resonating powers, Nanny, Ashe. Fact number 70. Serena and Venus Williams, two sisters from Compton, California, have dominated women's tennis since the 1990s, accumulating a total of 14 Grand Slam titles, playing as a pair in the doubles competition. In singles, they have 30 Grand Slam titles between them. Venus has 7. And in January, Serena became the first player to make it male or female to achieve 23 Grand Slam titles. That's powers. Fact 78. Already don't know if you tuned into any of my presentations before where these have been mentioned. These are my favorite sisters in history. Peace and more powers, rest in peace to the Yahosi warriors, also known as their European moniker, the Dahomey Amazons. They were an all-female Benin-based platoon used to fight against the French colonial regime and invasion. Originally, they were formed by a king as an elephant herding and hunting group, and it wasn't until around 1708 that they were actually militarized and turned into a king's guard. Now, at times, the Ahosi were made up as much of 1/3 of the entire Benin army, and women joined as freely as they wanted. They were joining as young as the age of 8. And there are documents that suggest that the Ahosi were very, very successful in repelling the French. Okay, there's French narratives which talk about how they were very fearless. Okay, how they were so prepared to defend the country. So these were some brave, badass sisters. Fact 83. The Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations, formerly known as ASCAP, was founded in 1984 by Drs. John Henrik Clark, Asa G. Hilliard, Leonard Jeffries, Jacob Carruthers, Reketi Aman, Joseph Ben-Yochanan, and also Malana Karenga. ASCAP focuses on disseminating a continually evolving body of knowledge that rescues, reconstructs, and restores African history and culture for the improvement of the global worldview of the ancient and modern Africa. Resonate in peace to Dr. Ben, to John Henrik Clark, Asa G. Hilliard. Who else? I'm not sure about Malana Karenga, if they're alive or not. Fact 94. Born to a former slaves in Fact 94. Born to former slaves in July. Fact 94. Born to former slaves in July 1864, Maggie Leonard Walker went on to become a prominent teacher, activist, and businesswoman, and in 1902 became the first woman of any race in America to charter a bank, the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. Walker went on to agree to be the chairman of the board, and the bank merged with 2 other local banks serving the community as a black-owned financial institute. Powers. So there you have it, some selected facts straight out of the new book. 100 amazing facts about the Negro with complete proof. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your focus for tuning in. I always appreciate it. Please tell your friends, your family, and your loved ones about the book. It is literally a tool to help you understand Black excellence, get involved with it, and actually instill some more positive role models in your life. And it is a great tool for the entire family, as it comes with lesson plans, quizzes, and all the other wood judges with it. So thank you for your time. Peace, peace. Catch you later.